Hello and welcome, my dear friend. You found this message now because this morning you impressed God in ways you probably didn't even notice, chosen one. Not by doing something grand or public, but by living right, which in God's eyes means doing the small things with a clean heart. Living right looks like waking up and making your bed even when your mind is heavy. It's replying with kindness instead of sarcasm. It's checking on someone without needing to be thanked. It's saying thank you under your breath before your first sip of water. That's the kind of rhythm heaven respects. Because when your life starts to move from intention instead of impulse, God pays attention. You didn't impress him with results. You impressed him with rhythm. The way you carry responsibility. The way you pause before reacting. The way you let honesty win, even when it costs you comfort. Most people measure success by what the world sees, but God measures it by how you move when no one's watching. And lately, your movements have been aligned, small, deliberate, sacred. You've been living right without even realizing how rare that is. You speak slower now, not because you're unsure, but because you're aware. You walk lighter, not from ease, but from peace. Your home stays tidier, your words kinder, your thoughts quieter. You're tending the garden of your life instead of waiting for someone else to water it. That's what impressed God. Not your ambition, your attention, not your plans, your patience. When he looked at you, he saw someone who finally understands that holiness isn't found in temples or sermons. It's woven into habits. It's how you treat people who can't benefit you. It's how you keep showing up even when there's no applause. And many times, living right isn't glamorous. It's choosing to do what's honest, not what's easy. It's saying no to gossip when silence feels awkward. It's praying before you scroll. It's forgiving people who still think they hurt you. That's the quiet excellence the unseen realm rewards. And that's what your life has been speaking lately. You impressed God because you've been steady. You've been truthful. You've been gentle, even when the world gave you every excuse to turn cold. And while you might think no one notices, heaven always does. Because divine eyes aren't drawn to noise, they're drawn to consistency. When you held your tongue in that conversation, when you helped that person even though you were tired, when you refused to match someone's bitterness, those moments registered. God saw a spirit choosing maturity over momentum. That's what living right looks like. And maybe today feels ordinary. Breakfast, work, errands, quiet evening. But it's within these ordinary moments that heaven sees extraordinary discipline. That's what it means to impress God. To do the normal things rightly. You're no longer trying to win, you're trying to be well. And that, my dear friend, is divine approval in motion. The way you whisper gratitude before sleep. The way you make sure your thoughts stay kind even when your feelings aren't. These are the things that count the most. That's why, this morning, when you moved through your routine, brushing your teeth, preparing your coffee, stepping outside for a moment of air, you might have felt a subtle calm you couldn't explain. Because God doesn't just watch how high you climb, he watches how cleanly you walk. And lately, your steps have matched his rhythm. You impressed him because you've learned the art of quiet greatness, doing good without needing to be seen, living clean without demanding credit. That's what makes you different. So if today feels simple, peaceful, maybe even uneventful, take that as your sign. You don't need fireworks to prove alignment. You just need to keep living right. One honest word, one gentle act, one mindful breath at a time. And please, don't get caught in the trap of thinking you have to be impressive in the eyes of society to be valuable in the eyes of God. There's a world of difference between them. Society feels satisfied when you're productive for it. It rewards obedience and calls it success. Because if you ever realized how different and worthy you truly are, you wouldn't follow its every command. That's why you hear hustle more often than you hear presence. The world wants agreeable people, not chosen ones like you, who see deeper meanings in what's rarely spoken about. You see, the world trains people to chase the loud moments, the promotion, the praise, the perfect post. But God moves in the pauses between them. He looks for hearts that can hold peace without needing proof, and that's you. When others rush to fill silence, you've learned to listen inside it. When most pray for miracles, you've started to live like one. Your discipline, your gentleness, your refusal to let bitterness win, they've all become a kind of language heaven understands fluently. That's why life feels quieter now, not empty, accurate. Because when your inner world aligns, the outer one starts following orders. You've stepped into a place where gratitude happens before gain, where prayer is less about asking and more about agreeing, where your joy doesn't need witnesses to be real. That's the maturity heaven celebrates. Not noise, but knowing. And though you might not see fireworks, you're surrounded by evidence, the peace that sits in your chest longer than it used to, the clarity that replaces confusion quicker each time, the way certain things just don't bother you anymore. That's not indifference, that's growth finally feeling like home. Dear Chosen One, this is what divine favor often looks like before the world names it. Nothing grand, nothing loud, just quiet order returning to every corner of your life. Because while people chase recognition, you've been learning reverence. And reverence changes everything. It changes how you handle money, how you speak to waiters, how you talk to yourself. You move differently now, not because you're trying to impress, but because you finally understand what's sacred. Even ordinary things, folding clothes, cooking dinner, locking the door at night, have become altars of awareness. That's the mark of someone who has impressed God. They stop dividing life into holy and normal. Every action becomes a prayer in motion. So if you've been wondering why life feels slower, it's not delay, it's design. You're being taught divine pacing. God doesn't measure by seconds. He measures by surrender. He's teaching you to trust that peace is a form of progress. And once you internalize that truth, something remarkable happens. Your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, your mind stops bracing for impact. You start to notice how many small things have already aligned for you. The conversation that calmed you, the closed door that protected you, the moment of laughter that arrived out of nowhere like medicine. You realize you're no longer chasing blessings, you're living inside them. Every morning now feels slightly different, not because circumstances changed overnight, but because you did. You've stopped fighting life, you're cooperating with it. And that cooperation creates miracles so subtle they almost look like coincidences. That's what divine partnership feels like, when your effort and God's grace move in sync. It's what happens when obedience stops feeling like duty and starts feeling like rhythm. And maybe that's one of the realest rewards of all this. Not sudden wealth, not recognition, but rest. The deep kind that doesn't depend on perfect conditions. The kind that comes when you finally trust that your goodness has been seen, your faith noted, and your steadiness recorded. So tonight, when you lie down, remember, heaven keeps better records than the world ever could. Every time you chose integrity over convenience, it was written down. Every moment you extended grace instead of gossip, it echoed in eternity. Every act of quiet obedience left an imprint larger than applause ever could. That's why God's presence feels closer now, not because He moved, but because you did. You turned your daily life into dialogue, and He's responding in peace. The coming days may still be ordinary on the surface, traffic, emails, dishes, laughter, but you'll start to notice a sacred undertone in all of it, a steadiness in your steps, a confidence in your timing, a softness in how you hold everything that used to make you tense. That's what it looks like when someone impresses God and keeps walking humbly anyway. You're not performing holiness, you're practicing wholeness, and that's far rarer. So remember, God isn't waiting for a grand gesture. He's smiling at the grace in your smallest ones. Because the way you've been living lately, the patience, the quiet gratitude, the refusal to let the world harden you, is the highest form of praise. And when heaven applauds, it doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like stillness, like the breath you just took, like the peace that won't leave, no matter what tomorrow brings. That's how you know you impressed God. and the way you keep living right will keep him smiling every day after. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated, please like, share it with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to stay connected. Continue your awakening journey by choosing one of the videos on your screen that resonates with you the most. See you there.